Thank you, Wita. First of all, I'd like to say, to welcome everyone to this session. Fashion is an exciting thing, and I was just looking around at the audience, and I see so many names on a lot of people, from the sneakers to the jacket to the way you wear your hair. And fashion is a way of expressing ourselves. It's a way of telling the world non-verbally. Some of the our views, it could be political views, it could be our fashion insight, who we are, and also sometimes fashion can mask what we don't want people to see. So fashion is a way of us taking clothes and using it to our advantage to make our nonverbal statement to the people that we see each and every day. So what I'd like to do is introduce our panel. We have some fantastic designers on this panel. I have worked with many of them in the past and have seen their impact in the Chicago community. First of all, I'd like to introduce Curtis Kojo Morrow. He is a former Korean veteran and writer. He still is a writer. You're always a writer. He is the author of one of the last Buffalo soldiers from the Korean War. Mr. Morrow is the author of 2 nonfiction books and one of those early pioneers that helped in the reestablishment of relations between Africans and African Americans at the ground level. Oh, yes. Yes, please.
If you have pagers, telephones, or any kind of electronic devices, would you please turn them off? Even if it's on vibrate, please turn them off.
Okay, to his left, we have Barbara Bates. Barbara is a self-taught fashion designer, and she was born in Chicago. And she is a product of the Chicago public school system and graduated from Marshall High School.
Hey, what's up?
I won't mention the year, though, right? Okay. Barbara has worked a variety of jobs after graduating from high school, where she frequently designed the clothes she wore. In 1984, while working as a secretary for the First National Bank of Chicago, Bates began selling her clothes out of the bathroom during lunchtime. This experience led her to design clothes full-time, and 2 years later, she opened a 700-square-foot showroom. In 1999, she founded the Bates Foundation.
Didn't you tell us?
That was it. The bell. That's okay. To provide custom prom dresses to underprivileged or hard-to-fit young women from inner-city schools in Chicago. Her desire to make dresses for these women comes primarily from her own trials as a teen mother. She remembers the alternative schools she attended as a pregnant 15-year-old and promised to make prom dresses for the girls who returned to high school and graduated. She continues to be a leader in the world fashion scene, and she has dressed celebrities such as Sinbad, Michael Jordan, Whitney Houston, and Mike Tyson. Then to her left, we have Jermicko Shoshanna Johnson. Jermicko was born in Chicago, and her father was an entrepreneur, and her mother was a textile weaver. So she comes by this through the bloodline. She graduated from DeSable High School in Chicago and went on to earn a BFA from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. She talks a lot about her experience, some of it of which has been, she has taught at Chicago State University. She also has worked for companies such as Pier 1 and Revere Sportswear. And she also received the Fashion Designer of the Year Award in 1997 and won it again in 2003. She also has been honored as the Manufacturer of the Millennium in 1999, and in 2003 earned the credit Women's Clothing Designer of the Year. Her activities include working with Girl Scouts of America, the Apparel Industry Board, the Chicago Fashion Guild, the Chicago Fashion Exchange, and the League of Black Women. Please welcome Jermicko. What I'm going to do is have each of our panelists talk a little bit about their careers, their design inspiration, which will give you some insight into how they do what they do. And also, we want this to be much more interactive, so you guys just kind of understand, because fashion is fun and hip and cool, and so we'll also make sure that there's enough time for us to have a good discussion about like your fashion style and what drives you. So I'm going to start off with Mr. Morrow.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, my name is Curtis Morrow, and I was born right here in Chicago. In fact, right around this area. I used to play around here as a kid. That was 71 years ago. And as you are, I went to, I didn't care too much for school because I was so adventurous after I learned to read. I began thinking about traveling. I always wanted to travel to different places. So, and at the time, everything we said we wanted to do, we would be told that we couldn't do this or we couldn't do that because we were black. I wanted to be an artist. I couldn't be an artist because I was black. So we had to go through that. See, I got fed up with it. And because the people who were saying that, they were well-meaning, of course, but they had never tried themselves. So, I mean, how could someone tell me something that they couldn't, something that I couldn't do when they had never tried themselves? So anyway, I got 17, I reached 17, I dropped out of high school, I was in the 10th grade, joined the Army, I convinced my mother. There was no war, so I joined the Army, I went to Korea, and as all 17-year-olds, I was adventurous and so forth. I wanted to be a hero, come back here with a chest full of medals, and all the beautiful girls would be falling all over me, all that. You know how we think, young kids, young boys. And so I got my wish. That was the worst mistake I made, going to Korea. Whereas I was there, and I wrote a book about the experience later. It was a horrible experience, suddenly I was face to face with the reality of life and war. And so I managed through that. For 9 months on the front, got wounded twice, so that got me off the front line. Coming back to the States, then I got used, I was here for about 10 years, I got fed up with the States and what was happening then. We were going through the cultural revolution, fighting for the rights that we were fighting for other people in Korea. And so I decided to go to Ghana, Africa, and take part in the revolutionary struggle that was going on then. Kwame Nkrumah, Dr. Nkrumah, was the president of Ghana. So anyway, I went to Korea, I went to Ghana, was there for about 4 months before his government was overthrown. So I was faced with the choice of staying there or coming back. I decided to stay. The next problem was how to earn a living, because you can't go looking for a job there. You would either have to be an educator, a manufacturer, or some business. You have to be able to teach something. So I knew something about art. I could draw and paint. So, but there was no market for painting at that time. So luckily for me, I drifted off into making jewelry from cow horns. At the time, I would go to the slaughterhouse. Well, it's not really a slaughterhouse. People kill the cows, and I pick up the cow horns and clean them out and make earrings similar to this here, but only I was doing it in cow horn at the time. And from that, I began to earn a living. People were buying what I was making. So I had to learn marketing. And marketing there is a bit more difficult. You have to walk places. Like you want to go downtown, you have to walk down there. So you get up early in the morning, you walk downtown, and you sell your jewelry or whatever your product. You see. So that advanced as I went along. At the same time, I'm training 2 people, but you've got to have someone under you there in order to be accepted by the people. Incidentally, I was adopted by the Ashantis while there. This has been here. I'm just going fast. I don't want to take up too much time. And so I became a member of the Ashanti tribe,
Shall we pass this around?
Yeah, sure.
Oh,
okay,
sure.
yeah. Mm-hmm. And so from that point, I began to make faces, like reproductions of traditional African arts and craft, like so. Which by doing that, I wasn't a threat to the indigenous artists there, because if they see you as a threat, they say, well, you're from America, you got an advantage over. So I began to make small miniature maps and small miniature pieces that could be worn as pendants. but only that's before I got into the silver. As you probably have been noticing, that's the traditional way of making jewelry, which is the hard way. Nowadays, everything is so modern now. You can set up a complete shop on this table here with the casting, cleaning, and polishing and everything. I learned that that's a way that you could be self-sufficient. You could do everything yourself. You could train people, and you can go anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world, people will buy jewelry. I mean, you can pick up. I have earned money by just picking up shells on the beach, stones, and polishing them up, hooking wire around it, put a hook on it, and they look good enough. Somebody would buy it, you know. So my problem over there was production. I couldn't produce enough to make any money, you see, and to expand. So I kept promising myself that I would return to the States and you know, and enhance my jewelry making, because I found out later that I could make models. You know, before any piece of jewelry that you wear, someone sit down and they carved it from a piece of wax. Like this can become a ring, like so. You know, you can make anything. You really need to know how to draw. And from that, you can, you know, cast it. Once you cast one piece, then you make a mold. And from this mold here, you can make hundreds of pieces of jewelry. I'm gonna get to you. You know, you can make hundreds of pieces of jewelry. So, which is what's happening here nowadays, you know. And so that's why I earn a living. The last time I punched a time clock was 1962.
That's a good
I'm
thing.
sorry, 1865.
Oh,
1865, yeah. And so I took on the responsibility of being an artist, which is what I always wanted to do. And later on in life, I decided I'll come back to the state and write about my experience. And so that's what I'm doing now. And I also do custom designs, you know, special orders. And, you know, I like doing things like this now. So this is a traditional. These are from traditional African masks and carvings and memorial pieces here. See. So the next thing I have in mind now is doing a traditional Japanese play. Incidentally, I travel all over the world. I speak Japanese, not fluently, but I can get by very, very well. Year before last, I went to Korea, 2001. You can go anywhere as a craft person or designer. And you fit right in, you're no threat. And you get so many ideas from the input that you get from the people there. They teach you the language. So my purpose of saying this is to expand your horizon. Never put limits on yourself. And I never have. And I can go on and on.
There was a young woman that had a question for you.
Yeah,
Did you have a
okay.
question in the back?
You answered, I just want to know if you're made of chess pieces yourself.
Oh, okay.
Say it.
Yeah.
Wanted to know if you made the chess pieces yourself.
Oh yeah. I didn't make the board. I just made the pieces. Yeah. You know. Now, in making something like this, the most difficult part of it, really would be making the carving. You know, you carving it out of a solid piece of wax. I didn't bring it with me, but you know, like so. The reason I have this white chalk on here is because that's where you draw your designs on this, see. And then you just take your time and you sit there with a little simple tool, like maybe a knife, X-Acto blade or something, and you carve it out. It would probably take something like between 6 and 8 hours to make the model. But once you make the model, and you cast it, you turn it into metal, then you make a mold of it. And from that you can make as many as you like.
So how long did it take you to do all those pieces?
The whole piece, the chess set from start to finish? You mean just the casting part?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the casting takes on average 16 hours. That's burnout time. Once you cast, you make your models and you set them up on a little sprue base. I got books here to show you. But you set it up on a sprue base, see, and there's a little metal container that goes around it. And you mix up something like cement, but we call it, it's like an investment. It gets hard. And after a moment or two, well, about half an hour, you know, you can take the rubber base off, put it in the oven. So what happens is the wax melts out leaving the imprint or whatever you have in there, in the object that you have in there, you see. Then you melt hot metal and pour the metal to fill the canvas that the that the model wants fitted in. And from there you douse it in a bucket of cold water, and the piece comes out. You take it out, you cut the sprue off, clean it, and polish it. From start to finish, to make this whole set could take about 3 days to a week, depending on how fast I work. But see, as a craftsman, you be doing several things at a time, because you always idea just be hitting you left way. You don't need to talk to nobody. You can just sit down there and just work out until you get hungry. That's all. Gosh, I gotta stop and go fix something to eat.
Well, we're gonna go on to Barbara, and it is your stage.
Hi, thank you. Hi, my name is Barbara Bates, and I'm the president and founder of Bates Designs, and I am from the West Side. As far back as I can remember as a little girl, much younger than you guys, I always knew that I wanted to be involved in fashion. At that time, I think the big catalogs that were out were like Sears, so I would cut the pictures out of the Sears catalog and cut the clothes out and just like save them and just like wish that one day. Actually, I didn't even know if I wanted to be a designer. I just wanted to be around clothes. I thought it would be great just to work in a store or be a buyer for a store and go buy the things and put them in boutiques. So that was kind of like what I thought I would want to do, is to like be an owner of a boutique or just work in a boutique. Because I knew that I didn't have the patience to sit down in a machine, and so I just never dreamed that I could be actually what I wanted to be. And as I went through high school, my sophomore year in high school, when I was 15, I got pregnant. And I had to leave my high school. In those days, you couldn't stay at high school like they'll let you stay now. You had to leave and go to an alternative school. And at that time, there was only one alternative school in the city of Chicago, and I was really blessed to be able to go to that school. And I was able to finish there and go back to my high school, Marshall, and graduate. And after I graduated from high school, I was working like part-time, like at Sears. I was like doing part-time work, and then I was going to school at night. So I took up a trade of typing. I thought, well, you can always make money typing, but I still never lost that desire, to do fashion. So I would always go to the fabric stores and look around the fabric stores. I would even buy fabric and then take it to friends who knew how to sew, and I would have them make me things. Then I started working in corporate America, and I would wear things to work that my friends had made me, and people would say, gosh, I really like that. Where'd you get that from? And I'll say, well, no, I designed it. And they say, oh, could you make one for me? So I learned how to take measurements, and I would meet the girls in the bathroom on break time, and I would take their measurements, and I would go buy the fabric, and I'd take it back to my friend's house, and I'd say, I need another one of these, and I'd take it back to work. And on payday, I would sell it and get money, and then I'd wear something else. And so I found myself having a small business while I was working in corporate America. Then a friend came to me and said, I really like what you're doing, and I'll loan you the money to start a business. We can go in 50-50. I'll give you the money. You got the talent, so we'll do a business venture. So I still knew nothing about sewing, but I thought I had like an eye for fabric. So I went and I found a small space, and I put an ad in the newspaper for people who knew how to sew. And they came to my shop and they showed me their work, and I just took a chance and I said, yeah, I'll hire you. So I opened up what was called Bates Designs. I didn't have a business plan, and the story that I'm telling is not your normal story, so don't take these notes down like she did it that way. That's a great way to do it. I think that I had my grandmother's prayers that were blessings that flowed over that made this whole thing work. Plus, in becoming a fashion designer, there was another thing for me to do, which I'll get to. So I opened up the business in 1986, and I started with 4 tailors who knew how to sew. 2 of them spoke Polish. They didn't even speak English, and so we had to make all kind of little signs to tell them what we wanted. My girlfriends were buying from me, and I had friends buying from me, but I really didn't know, if the masses would buy from me. So I put the word out there that I was a fashion designer. That's what I called myself. There's another designer in the city who was well established at that time named Reginald Thomas. He took me to buy the machines because I didn't even know what kind of machines to buy, and he told me how to get my business started. Well, after about 3 months, the guy who had put the money up said, this business really isn't making money fast enough for me, so the money that I loaned you, you could just pay it back to me. I'll give you like a year and a half to pay the money back. Well, in that year and a half's time, I was really blessed. After about 5 months down the road, I met Michael Jordan, and Michael Jordan became a client. And then after I met Michael, Chicago was really good to me and gave me wonderful publicity because I was the designer from the West Side who was doing clothes for Michael Jordan. So I had wonderful write-ups in the paper. And then after the write-ups in the paper, there were people who went to school with me. and who, they were just kind of like following my career. Like I'm sure this is the same girl I went to school with. And I got a phone call one day, and I'm really condensing the story for you, but I got a phone call from someone who said, I went to a maternity school with a girl named Barbara Bates. She had a child back in 1972. Could you, are you that same person? And I said, yeah, I am. She said, well, we've been following your story, and, we really want to just say congratulations. We think you've been doing a great job. And I work with young girls that are teen moms, and we want to know if you would come back out and speak to them and let them know that, there's still a chance, even if they get pregnant or they should fall while they're in high school, that they can still do something with themselves. So I said, sure, I'll do that. When I got off the phone, I thought to myself, I'm not going anywhere over there near that school. I'm not a speaker. I would never know what to say to them. I'm a fashion designer now. I'm doing my thing here, and what could I possibly give them? And about a month passed, and the woman called again, and she said, we were just calling to confirm that you're going to show up today, to come speak to the girls. And I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to come. So I had to make that commitment since she had caught me on the phone. So I drove back over to the West Side to Bethany Hospital. That's actually where the meeting was being held at. And I hadn't been back to the West Side, and it had been such a long time since I had actually been in the community where I grew up. And at that time, I had like Michael Jordan as a client. I think I was doing things for like Sinbad. I mean, I had a really great celebrity following. So, people sort of looked at me as like a celebrity quote, but really I was just as excited about seeing them as they were about seeing me when they would come to my shop. And so when I went into the room, I walked into the room and there were probably about 15 young girls, maybe from the age from like 12 to about 16, and they were all, teen moms. And it was the first time I really thought about where I had come from, that I had come from this exact same neighborhood, and that I was, sitting in a classroom as a teenager and I was pregnant. And when I stood before them, all the words just seemed to come that I needed to tell them. And those words were that I had come from exactly where they had come from, and that the only reason that I had gotten, as far as I had gotten, was that there were people, who believed in me, who helped me along the way. Like my mom was willing to keep my child after I had him. And there were people who, reached out, like the guy who loaned me the money. And then there were other friends who, wore my product. And that, that these were just like all blessings that I received. So I was standing before these girls, and there was something that I needed to give back. And as I told my story, I thought about the fact that I graduated from high school when I was 16. I only stayed in high school for 3 years, even though I was a teen mom. And these were things I just sort of took for granted. I never knew that it was something I could say and that it could help somebody else. And as I told my story, I saw the young girls really get filled with pride. And it's because I thought about when I was a teen standing at the bus stop, it was so embarrassing. And it was like such a devastating point in my life to be standing there 15 and pregnant, and people look at you and they judge you and they think a certain way about you. So that was the fuel of the fire that I needed to like push me forward. And I thought that I'd never want to fail at anything else. I'd always want to do and be the best that I could be, so I would never have to have that feeling again. And I let those young women know that, despite whatever is going on, that when you're willing to help yourself, there's always somebody that's out there that's willing to help you. So before I left the classroom, I vowed that any of the girls that stayed in school and went back to their own high school and graduated, that I would do custom-made prom dresses for them. And that's kind of how my foundation started. Initially, I did the prom dress thing for probably about 10 years, and I never even told anybody I was doing it. And then someone told someone else, and once again, Chicago newspaper, they were good to me, and they printed it. And from printing it, other people came forward to put in money for the foundation. So I've always been noted as a fashion designer / someone who has the foundation, because my commitment is really to young women and to young men, those that aren't the best or the smartest or that always get picked out, because sometimes, as young women, we can be really cruel, and we ostracize a person because they're not a size 6 or they don't have long hair or they're not fair complected. It's something that has been instilled and it's innate in us, and we have a tendency not to let it go. But I thought that, I should come back and let you know that if you help each other and if you always reach out and continue to give, that things will constantly come back to you. And it was important to let everybody know that everyone was beautiful. So right now the foundation, we give prom dresses to girls who are full-figured, who can't go into a store and buy a size 6 or 8, but they want to feel special on prom. Or to the girl who can't sit at the lunch table with the popular kids that are wearing Sean John or Rocawear because their family can't afford to buy that for them. Because it's so important that these values are instilled when you're young, so that you can be the next generation to change the gap that we have between ourselves and the bickering and the fighting that goes on right now. I've really been blessed, and I say that I've been blessed because what I saw once as such a tragedy, being a teen mom, and I felt so bad about it, it actually wasn't a curse. it was a blessing because my business was allowed to prosper and grow, and in doing that, you know, I had a commitment to keep going back to Chicago public schools and just instilling in young people that, you know, you can be great at what you want to do. I've been so blessed. I've worked with artists like R. Kelly, and I've worked with Snoop Dogg, and you know, I've just really had a blessing. I've also just worked with regular people because sometimes people say, well, we can't afford Barbara-based designs, her things are so expensive because she only works with celebrities. And that's not true. I've always, you know, I have things that are very expensive, but I also have things that are like moderately priced. I bought a couple of things just so you could see a little bit of like the work that I do.
Need some help, Barbara?
No, I think, well, I can have a model. Does anybody want to come on? On what side?
No problem.
I started working with leather and suede because that was like my first love. And then after 2 summers of starving, I decided to start working with fabrics. But this is actually shearling, and shearling comes from a lamb. Let's see if we can figure out how to go. Okay. Cute little shape. I had that once before.
That's pretty.
And so like the shearling is actually a lamb, and when the skins come, they come just like the animal they come shaped just like an animal, the head, the arms, everything. And that's just like a little shearling swing coat. And so you have to like cut the insides out and just use the good part of the skin, and then you have to discard the rest. Yes.
Where do you get your clothes? I mean, what's the one?
Actually, I sell to private customers. I only have one boutique that I sell to right now, and that store is called Contessa. But it's on Delaware. So actually, I have like private customers that come into my showroom, and they'll have an idea of what they want, or they don't know what they want. And we'll sketch it up, and we'll make it. You know, we'll make it for them.
You said private, what's that?
Like you, like if you were to come to me and say, I want you to make my prom dress, you'd be considered a private customer. We don't have things, I mean, I do have things that are hanging on the rack that you could come and just buy. And actually, I'm doing more of that. Yeah, I have something with me, I'm sure. This one, this is a leather outfit, and it's just, you could put the jacket on, wouldn't have to put the pants on, but. It's actually for a customer who lives in Detroit. We made it up, we're gonna ship it out to her. And we do the jacket like in all kind of colors and, you know, different fabrics. Like this jacket is a $1,500 jacket, but it could be a $300 jacket if I did it in denim with leather or denim with suede. So I could take this one pattern and I could change it into like 10 other patterns just by manipulating what the fabric is going to be. And a lot of designers, they'll sometimes put a collection together and then they go out and look for fabrics. So I work the opposite way. I go to fabric stores and I wait for the fabrics to speak to me. I know what I like to work with and I know what works with the fabric. And so I buy the fabric first and then I take it back and then I design what actually the garment is going to be. I'm going to be celebrating 20 years in the next, probably like, I think like next year of business, and it's been a blessing. Excuse me? It's only $9.50.
That's not bad. That's not bad. You know, okay, Barbara, we're gonna need to move on to Jermicko. Thank you.
Sometimes we as designers don't get to hear other designer stories.
I know,
I've heard part of it, but this is my first time hearing a whole story. What you've seen is an example of each career and how we got started and what it is that we do. So my story is I started designing in 1968. I went to DuSable, and I always wanted to know how to be a designer. I did not know the term designer. I wanted to make clothes, and I wanted to make